Hi friends, if you are preparing for AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate exam, then this video is for you. This is a practice exam or a mock exam which is based on the real exam pattern, and this would help you to learn the questions and also the explanation and answer which will help you to do the preparation. So without any delay, let's get started. This is going to be a real time 2 hour 10-minute exam which will have 65 questions, and to pass we have to do 72% correct, which means we can make about 18 mistakes to pass, 18 or less. So let's see what is our first question. So first question goes, there was an incident. So first question goes like, there was an incident in your production environment where the user data stored in the S3 has been accidentally deleted by one of the junior dev. The issue was escalated to your manager, and after a few days, you were instructed to improve the security and protection of AWS resource. What combination of the following option will protect the S3 in your bucket from both accidental deletion and overwriting? So you can enable multi-factor authentication whenever someone is deleting. He has to do second auth as well, which will protect from the accidental deletion. And disable S3 using IAM bucket policy. So they do not want to disable. What they want is, if accidentally it's deleted, you should have a way. So you can enable versioning, because this will allow you to undelete if something gets accidentally deleted. So let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, let's go to the next question. A company is in the process of migrating their applications to AWS. One of their systems requires a database that can scale globally and handle frequent schema changes. The application should not have any downtime or performance issues whenever there is a schema change in the database. It should also provide a low latency response to high traffic queries, which is the most suitable database solution to achieve this requirement. So I would go with DynamoDB because that is a NoSQL database, which means there is no fixed schema against which you need to work. And if there is any change in the JSON, it would be able to absorb without any downtime. Without any downtime, and its query is also very fast, like in single digit millisecond. If you use DAX, which is the DynamoDB accelerator, the query response time is very fast. Apart from it, since it is partitioned, or you can think of it as sharded based on the hash, the retrieval of data is also very, very fast. So and it's serverless, so you don't have to worry much. It would always perform better. Third question, a company has a cloud architecture that is composed of Linux and Windows EC2 instances that process high volume of financial data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which means non-stop. To ensure high availability of system, the solutions architect need to create a solution that allow them to monitor the memory and disk utilization metrics for all the instances. Which of the following is most suitable monitoring solution to implement? Enable the enhanced monitoring option in EC2 and install CloudWatch agent to all EC2 instances to be able to view the memory and disk utilization. I'm reading all other options as well. You can also see on screen and read. Fourth option, and install the CloudWatch agent. So first option says enable the enhanced monitoring option in EC2 and install CloudWatch agent to all EC2. Last option says install agent in all EC2 that gathers memory and disk utilization. View custom metrics in CloudWatch console. And this guy says view the memory and disk utilization CloudWatch dashboard. So I would go with first. And we will see, we will review at the end whatever our wrong answers would be. And feel free to leave the comment in whatever question you feel, I'm making mistake, but we'll see the result at the end of this exam. A company is using a combination of API gateway and Lambda for the web services of the online web portal that is being accessed by hundreds of thousands of clients each day. They will be announcing a new revolutionary product, and it is expected that the web portal will receive a massive number of visitors all around the globe. How can you protect the backend system and application from traffic spikes? Use throttle limits in API gateway, manually upgrade EC2 instance being used by API gateways. API gateway will automatically scale and handle the massive spike so you don't have to do anything. Deploy multi-AC. So third is the correct answer. A company has decided to host its automobile sales website in Amazon EC2 and store the data in Amazon RDS. The listing will be automatically removed once the vehicle is sold. The solution architect must implement a solution that monitors the automated DB snapshots and forwards the data to multiple target groups. Which of the following option can satisfy the given requirement? Create an RDS event subscription and send the notification to Amazon SQS. Configure the SQS queue to fan out the event notification to multiple Amazon SNS topic. Update the target group using a Lambda function. I think this answer third would be good because you create a RDS event subscription. So whenever there is an event, based on the event, notification would be sent in SNS, simple notification queue. The first answer says SQS, so notification cannot be sent in SQS. Message can be sent. So now what will happen as soon as the SNS will get the will get notified, you can configure the SNS topic to fan out the event notification to multiple Amazon SQS. So multiple queues will get the messages and queue would get filled up. Now based on the values in the queue, you can update the target group. So based on whatever the message in the queue, the target group will use the Lambda function and can act upon it. And roughly 2 minutes per question is a good speed. So we lost 10 minutes and we finished 5 questions. So we are going good with the speed. 65 question will take 2 hours and 10 minutes. So we are doing good with the speed. When you do the real exam, just keep a watch on the time as well. A company has a web application that uses Internet Information Server (IIS) for Windows Server. A file share is used to store the application data on network attached storage of company's on-premises data store. To achieve a highly available system, they plan to migrate the application and file share to AWS. Which of the following will fulfill the requirement? Migrate the existing file share configuration to Amazon FSx for file server. Since this thing is Windows, I guess the first option looks more appropriate. Migrate existing file share to AWS storage gateway. This happens between on-premise and the cloud. So first one would be the good option. An IT consultant is working for a large financial company. The role of the consultant is to help the development team build a highly available web application using stateless web servers. In this scenario, which AWS services are suitable for storing session data? So when it comes to session data, we should go with Elastic Cache and DynamoDB. These are two. Because key value pair, DynamoDB would be faster, and Elastic Cache can use Redis or Memcached in a distributed fashion. And that's how, since we need it stateless, so any web server should be able to retrieve. Hence, these are two options. RDS would be a overkill. It's the SQL service or relational database service. Redshift is analytical data service, and Glacier is storage. So they are invalid options. A company conducted a surprise IT audit on all of the AWS resources being used in the production environment. During the audit activities, it was noted that you are using a combination of standard and convertible reserve EC2 instances in your application. They argued that you should have used Spot EC2 instance instead, as it is cheaper than the reserve instance. Which of the following are the characteristics and benefits of these two types of reserve EC2 instance which you can use as justification? Standard reserve instances can be later exchanged for convertible reserve instance. It runs in a VPC on hardware that's dedicated to a single user. It can enable you to reserve capacity for your EC2 instance in multiple availability zone and multiple AWS regions for any duration. You can have capacity reservation that reoccur on daily, weekly, or monthly basis with a specific start and duration for 1 year term, those scheduled reserve instances. Reserve instance don't get interrupted like spot instances in the event that there are not enough unused EC2 instance. So this is for sure correct. And then you can convert the instances later into other convertible reserve instances. Or we should go with this in multiple availability zone for any. I don't think it is for any duration. It is for 1 year and 3 years. So this does not seems correct. You can renew and This one is dedicated host or dedicated instance. So I'm still confused with this because multiple answer seems correct. So without wasting any time, we have to pick one and move quickly, faster. A tank company that you are working for has undertaken a total cost of ownership TCO analysis evaluation, the use of Amazon S3 versus acquiring more storage hardware. The result was that all 1,200 employees would be granted access to use S3 for storage of their personal document. Which of the following will you need to consider so that you can set up a solution that incorporates single sign-on feature from your corporate AD or LDAP directory and also restricts access for each individual user to a designated user folder in an S3 bucket. So map each individual user to a designated user folder in S3 using workdoc to access their personal document. Use third-party single sign-on solution as Okta. Set up matching IAM user for each of the users in corporate directory that needs access to the folder in S3. Set up a federation proxy or identity provider and use AWS security token to generate temporary token. Configure an IAM role and an IAM policy to access the bucket. So problem is not straightforward. What they want is they want to calculate total cost of ownership. Now the result is there are 1,200 employees. They would be granted the S3 bucket for storing their personal document. And what they want is incorporate single sign-on feature from Active Directory or LDAP that would restrict each individual to use only and only their own S3 bucket. So configure the IAM policy for the bucket. This is correct. And set up federation proxy or identity provider and use AWS token service to generate temporary token. Based on these tokens, the person which have access can set up the bucket. First and second, I don't think is a good answer. Set up a matching IAM user for each of the users in your corporate directory that needs access to a folder. So users are already there. Why do you want to set up matching IAM user? You can just federate it. A Docker application which is running on Amazon EC2 ECS, which is Elastic Container Service Cluster behind a load balancer, is heavily using DynamoDB. You are instructed to improve the database performance by distributing the workload evenly and using the provision throughput efficiently. Which of the following would you consider to implement for your DynamoDB database? A Docker application is running on ECS and we have to improve the database performance by distributing the workload evenly and using the provisioned throughput efficiently. Reduce the number of partition key in DynamoDB. That is opposite of what we need here. Use partition key with low cardinally attribute which have few number of distinct values. This is opposite. Use partition key with high cordiality which have large number of distinct value for each item. This is true. The company that you are working for has a highly available architecture consisting of an elastic load balancer and several EC2 instances configured with auto scaling in 3 availability zone. You want to monitor EC2 instance based on a particular matrix which is not readily available in CloudWatch. Which of the following custom metrics you have to set up manually? So network packet is given already. Disk read activity, CPU utilization. I think CPU utilization is already there. Disk read activity and memory utilization. One of these we might have to do manually. I guess it is memory utilization, which is RAM. How much RAM is getting used? This we have to set up, and it is not readily available. A company plans to build a data analytics application in AWS, which will be deployed in an auto scaling group of on demand EC2 instances. So we have a data analytics application which is deployed on ASG auto scaling group on EC2 and a Mongo database. It is expected that the database will have a high throughput workload performing small random IO. As a solution architect, you are required to properly set up and launch the required resource in AWS. Which of the following is most suitable EBS type to use for the database? So EBS has different types. So they are saying that you have random access, random IO, and how through high throughput. So what you have to do is you should go with SSD because HDD is not that fast, and provisioned IOPS SSD or general purpose. Since this one is a database and you have high throughput, I would go with provisioned IOPS SSD. Throughput optimized HDD can also happen, but the workload is random. A forex trading platform which frequently processes and stores global financial data every minute is hosted in your on-premises data center and uses a Oracle database. Due to a recent cooling problem in their data center, the company urgently needs to migrate their infrastructure to AWS to improve the performance of their applications. As a solution architect, you're responsible in ensuring that the database is properly migrated and should remain available in case of database server failure in the future. Which of the following is most suitable solution to meet the requirement? Convert the database schema using AWS schema conversion tool and AWS database migration service. Migrate the Oracle database to a non-cluster Amazon Aurora with a single instance. Okay, so what the solution says, you are responsible for converting this. So this first thing would suffice that. Second thing is it is saying that you would move on Amazon Aurora, migrate the Oracle database to a non-cluster Amazon Aurora. So Amazon Aurora only provide MySQL and Postgre. So this should not be the option. Create an Oracle database in RDS with multi-AZ deployments. A company plans to launch an Amazon EC2 instance in a private subnet for its internal corporate web portal. For security purpose, the EC2 instance must send data to Amazon DynamoDB and Amazon S3 via private endpoints that doesn't pass through the public internet. Which of the following can meet the requirement? So if you have to avoid the public internet, you should use direct connect to route all access to S3 and DynamoDB via private link. Because VPN will go through on the public internet. VPC endpoint in all routes have access to S3 and DynamoDB. Use VPC endpoints to route all access to S3 and DynamoDB via private endpoints. So fourth option is good when you have something hybrid, which is on premises and AWS. First is good when you have everything on VPC and you need the private connectivity. A company needs to design an online analytics application that uses Redshift cluster for its data warehouse. Which of the following services allow them to monitor all API calls in Redshift instance and can also provide secure data for auditing and compliance purpose? So whenever there is auditing and compliance, the CloudTrail would be your obvious answer. A company hosts multiple applications in their VPC while monitoring the system. They noticed that multiple port scans are coming in for a specific IP address block that is trying to connect to several AWS resources inside their VPC. The internal security team has requested that all offending IP address will be denied for next 24 hours for security purpose. Which of the following is the best and quickly temporary deny all access from specific IP? Modify the network access control list associated with all public subnets in the VPC to deny access from the IP address blocks. Because this is the fastest. A solution architect identified a series of DDoS attacks while monitoring the VPC. The architect needs to fortify the current cloud infrastructure to protect the data of the clients. Which of the following is the most suitable solution to mitigate these kind of attacks? Use firewall manager, set up a security layer that prevents Sydney floods UDP. No. A combination of security groups and network control list. Set up a web application firewall using AWS WAF to filter, monitor, and block HTTP traffic. Use AWS Shield Advanced to detect and mitigate DDoS attacks. Yeah, this is what AWS Shield is being used for, which will mitigate the DDoS attacks all by itself. So you don't have to do much. A retail website has intermittent, sporadic, and unpredictable transactional workload. So it is unpredictable workload throughout the day that are hard to predict. The website is currently hosted on premises and is slated to be migrated to AWS. The new relational database is needed that auto scales capacity to meet the need for the application's peak load and scales back down when the surge of activity is over. Which of the following option is the most cost effective and suitable database setup in this scenario? Launch an Amazon Aurora serverless DB cluster. Then set up the minimum and maximum capacity of the cluster. Launch Redshift? No, that is for data warehousing and analytics. Launch Amazon Aurora provisioned DB cluster with bustable performance DB instance class types. Launch DynamoDB global table with auto scaling. So between first or third, it could be something. I think Aurora serverless is a good option so that you don't have to do much. But if you do provision DB cluster with bustable performance, that can also be a good thing. What database they have? A company is using S3 to store frequently accessed data. When an object is created or deleted, S3 bucket will send an event notification to SQS. A solution architect needs to create a solution that will notify the development and operations team about the created and deleted objects. Which of the following would satisfy the requirements? So I think fourth one, you will create a SNS topic. So S3 will send the notification that via SNS to the SQS queue. And once this is on SQS queue, the both the teams would be notified. A multi-tiered application hosted in your on-premises data center is scheduled to be migrated to AWS. The application has a message broker service which uses a standard industry standard messaging API and protocol that must be migrated as well without rewriting the messaging code in your application. Which of the following is most suitable? So that should be MQ because messaging queue is standard and SQS is AWS specific simple queue. A pharmaceutical company has resources hosted on both their on-premise network and in cloud. They want all of their software architects to access resource on both environment using on-premises credential, which is stored in Active Directory. So they are talking about Active Directory integration and which would fulfill these requirement. Set up SAML 2.0 based federation by using Microsoft Active Directory Federation Service ADFS. And web identity federation is used with social networking like Google and Facebook. But when you have data in AD, this would be a better option. A financial application is composed of an auto-scaling group of EC2, an application load balancer, and a MySQL RDS instance in a multi-AZ deployment configuration. To protect the confidential data of your customer, you have to ensure that your RDS database can only be accessed using the profile credential specific to your EC2 instance via a authentication token. As a solution architect of the company, which of the following meet the requirement? Enable IAM DB authentication. And why is that? Because create an IAM role and assign it to EC2 instance, which will grant exclusive access to your RDS instance. I think this one would be better. An online medical system hosted in AWS stores sensitive, personally identifiable information PII of the users in an S3 bucket. Both the master keys and the unencrypted data should never be sent to AWS to comply with the strict compliance and regulatory requirement of the company. Which S3 encryption technique should the architect use? So there is key management service, which is KMS. So S3 client side encryption with KMS. seems a more valid question because it talks about master key, talks about KMS. And second is server side S3 server side encryption with customer provided key. So we'll go with this. Let's see. A company collects atmospheric data such as temperature, air pressure, humidity from different countries. Each site located is equipped with various weather instruments and high speed internet connection. The average collection data in each location is around 500 GB and will be analyzed by weather forecasting application hosted in Northern Virginia. A solution architect, as a solution architect, you need to aggregate all the data in the fastest way. What you would do? I would go with multi-part upload with transfer acceleration. A travel photo sharing website is using Amazon S3 to serve high quality photos to visitors. After a few days, you found that there are other travel websites linking and using your photos. The results in financial losses for your business. What is the most effective method to mitigate it? Configure your S3 to remove public read access and use pre-signed URLs with expiry dates. So what this would do is on S3, you have a pre-signed URL, which means only specific user can see these photos and not everybody. And the person who is not accessing any other person, if he tries, he will get access denied. A company is designing a banking portal that uses Amazon Elastic Cache for Redis as its distributed session management component. Since the other cloud engineers in your department have access to your Elastic Cache cluster, you have to secure the session data in the portal by requiring them to enter a password before they are granted permission to execute Redis commands. As a solution architect, which of the following you need to do? So you can use Redis auth created by Redis cluster with both transit encrypt enable and auth token parameter. And why is that? Because in the cache, if anyone can go and read the data, it's not secure. An online shopping platform is hosted on ASG of Spot EC2 instances and uses Aurora PostgreSQL as its database. There is a requirement to optimize your database workload in your cluster where you have to direct the right operation of production traffic to your high capacity instances and point the reporting queries sent by your internal staff to a low capacity instance, which is the most suitable configuration for application as well as your Aurora database cluster to achieve this requirement. Create a custom endpoint in Aurora based on specific criteria for the production traffic and another custom endpoint to handle the reporting queries. First would be the answer. A solution architect is hosting a website on S3. The user load the website using URL, and there is a new requirement to add a JavaScript on the web page in order to make authenticated HTTP GET request against the same bucket by using the Amazon S3 API endpoint. Upon testing, you notice that the web browser blocks JavaScript from allowing those requests. Enable cross-origin resource sharing. So what would happen is the origin is different because this is what is the real thing and this is what is some other page which is accessing. So you have to origin cross, enable cross origin request. CSC CORS course, cross origin resource sharing. A suite of web application is hosted in an auto-scaling group of EC2 instances across 3 availability zones and is configured with default setting. There is an application load balancer that forwards the request to the respective target group on the URL path. The scaling policy has been triggered due to the low number of incoming requests to the application. Which EC2 instance will be the first one to be terminated by auto-scaling group? One with the oldest launch config. Solution architect need to make sure that the on-demand EC2 instance can only be accessed from IP address via a SSH connection. What you should do. So you know the port of SSH is 22. You know the source, which is exactly this IP address. And then you know that this is going to be a TCP connection. An online cryptocurrency exchange platform is hosted in AWS, which uses ECS cluster and RDS in multi-AZ deployment configuration. The application is heavily using the RDS instance to process complex read and write operations. To maintain the reliability, availability, and performance of your system, you have to closely monitor how the different processors or threads on DB instance use the CPU, including the percentage of CPU bandwidth and total memory consumed by each process. Which of the following is most suitable solution to properly monitor your database? Check the CPU usage and memory metrics, which are readily available in Amazon RDS console, that shows the percentages of CPU bandwidth and total memory consumed by each database process. I'm not sure because CloudWatch is somewhere something which provides the monitoring. And fourth option is saying that RDS console shows the percentage. However, I would like to go with this answer. And then probably if you enable enhanced monitoring, it would give the results instead of 5 minutes every minute. So monitoring would be same, it's just that it would enhance. I still like the second answer, to create the script and send it to CloudWatch. So we have about 1 hour 10 minutes and we are midway. So we are doing good with the time. A cryptocurrency trading platform is using an API built with AWS Lambda and API Gateway. Due to the recent news and rumors about the upcoming price surge of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies, it is expected that the trading platform would have a significant increase in site visitors and new users in the upcoming days ahead. In this scenario, how can you protect the backend systems of the platform from traffic spikes? So API gateway is capable of handling. I would say since you are using API gateway and Lambda function, both are serverless. You can enable throttling limits and you can do the caching in API gateway. A solution architect designed a serverless architecture that allows AWS Lambda to access an Amazon DynamoDB table named tutorial dojo in US East North Virginia region. The IAM policy attached to Lambda function allows it to put and delete items in the table. The policy must be updated to only allow two operations. Which of the following policy will fulfill the requirement and follows the principle of granting the least privilege? So first policy, what it is saying, put and delete item in the table. Which table? This table. So first one seems good. Let's see second. It is giving on all tables. Third, put and delete on this resource. And then to everyone it is allowing. So this is not a good policy. And it is allowing all the, so what we picked is correct. A solution architect needs to set up a relational database and come up with a disaster recovery plan to mitigate multi-region failure. The solution require a recovery point objective of 1 second and recovery time objective of less than 1 minute. Which of the following services can fulfill this requirement? So what they are talking about is multi-region. And if you have DynamoDB global table, and then they are talking about relational. I think RDS with Postgre with cross-region read replica. So the read replica might lose only 1 second. There is 1 second delay for recovery point objective, and recovery time objective is within a minute you can make the read replica as the primary instance. A company needs to deploy at least two EC2 instances to support the normal workload of its application and automatically scale up to 6 to handle the peak load. The architecture must be highly available and fault tolerance as it is processing mission critical workload. As solutions architect of a company, what should you do to meet the above requirements? So what we'll do is EC2 instance and set up minimum capacity to 4 and maximum to 6. Deploy 2 instance in availability zone A and 2 in B. Because 2 are required in each availability zone. So if one availability zone goes down, it is supposed to be highly available and fault tolerant. A tech company has CRM application hosted on an ASG. The application is extremely used during office hours. Their users are complaining that performance of application is slow during the start of the day, but then works normally after a couple of hours. Which of the following can be done so that it works properly at the beginning of the day? Configure schedule scaling of ASG to launch new instances before the start of the day. An application hosted in EC2 consumes messages from an SQS queue and is integrated with SNS to send out an email to you once the process is complete. The operations team received 5 orders, but after a few hours, they saw 20 mails. Which of the following is culprit? The web application is not deleting the message in SQS after it has processed them. A software development company is using serverless computing with AWS Lambda to build and run applications without having to set up or manage servers. They have Lambda function that connects to a MongoDB Atlas, which is a proper database as a service. Popular, sorry. And also uses a third-party API to fetch certain data for their application. One of the developer was instructed to create the environment variable for the MongoDB database hostname, username, password, as well as the API credential that will be used by the Lambda function for dev, SIT, UAT, and prod environments. Considering that the Lambda function is storing sensitive database and API credential, how can this information be secured to prevent other developers from seeing this credential in plain text? There is no need to do anything by default. AWS Lambda already encrypts the environment variable using AWS Key Management Service. So it is saying create a new KMS key and use it to enable encryption helper that leverage on AWS Key Management Service to store the store and encrypt the sensitive information. Yeah, let's do this. Since I have to take care of time, I am not overthinking any of these answers. Otherwise, we might lose time. A global IT company with offices around the world has multiple AWS accounts to improve efficiency and drive cost cuts. The CTO wants to set up a solution that centrally manages AWS resources. This will allow them to procure AWS resources centrally and share resources such as AWS transit gateways, AWS license manager configuration, or Route 53 resolver rules across their various accounts. As a solution architect, which combination should you implement? So you should consolidate all companies' account in AWS organization for sure. Now we have to do 25 questions in 1 hour. A government entity is consolidating a population and housing census in the city. Each household information updated on their online portal is stored in encrypted files in S3. The government assigned its architect to set compliance policies that verify sensitive data in a manner that meets their compliance standards. They should also be altered if there are compromises, files detected containing personally identifiable data, protect health information or intellectual properties. Which of the following you should do? So if you set up and configure Amazon machine learning to monitor and detect usage pattern on the Amazon S3 data, this could be one. Second is set up and configure guard duty to monitor malicious activity on their S3 data. Both could be the option. Any one of these could be the option. I would still go with guard duty. A company has a hybrid cloud architecture that connects their on premise data center with cloud. They require a durable storage backup for their corporate documents stored on premises and a local cache that provides low latency access to their recently accessed data to reduce data egress charges. And local cache that provides low latency, yeah, The document must be stored and retrieved from AWS via the SMB, server message block protocol. These files must immediately be accessible within minutes for 6 months and within minutes for 6 months and archived for another decade to meet data compliance. Which of the following is most best cost effective way? So you would go for Glacier for sure, and all the options are talking about Glacier. I would go with launch a new file gateway that connects to on-premise data center AWS storage gateway. Upload the document to the file gateway and set up a lifecycle policy to move the data into Glacier for data archival. A company plans to host a web application in an ASG. The application will be used globally by users to upload and store several types of files based on user trend. Files that are older than 2 years must be stored in a different storage class. The, the architect of the company needs to create cost-effective and scalable solution to store the old file yet still provide durability and high availability. This is confusing. I don't want to waste much time. S3 and create lifecycle policy to move object to S3 Glacier after 2 years. Lifecycle policy will move the objects to S3 standard infrequent access. Huh. An application that records weather data every minute is deployed in a fleet of EC2 instances and uses MySQL RDS database instances. Currently, there is only one RDS instance running in one availability zone. You plan to improve the database to ensure high availability by synchronous data replication to another RDS instance. Which of the following performs synchronous data replication? It could be either read replica or DB instance running in multi-AZ deployment. So read replica should be synchronous and multi-AZ deployment should be asynchronous, because if one goes down, another would fail over. There are a lot of outages in availability zone AZs of your RDS instance, to the point that you have lost access to database. Which could you do to prevent losing access to your database in case this happens again? Enable multi-AZ failover. A media company has ECS cluster which uses Fargate launch type to host its news website. The database credentials should be supplied using environment variable to comply with strict security compliance. As the solution architect, you have to ensure that the credentials are secure and that they cannot be viewed in plain text. Which of the following is most suitable? In a government agency you are working for, you have been assigned to put confidential text document on AWS. However, it is a concern from a security perspective on what can be put on AWS. What are the features that can enable data security and confidentiality? A company plans to migrate its on-premise workload to AWS. The current architecture is composed of SharePoint server that uses Windows shared file storage. The solution architect needs to use a cloud storage solution that is highly available and can be integrated with AD for access control and authentication. Which of the following option can satisfy the given requirements? A company has three DevOps engineers that are handling its software development and infrastructure management processes. One of the engineers accidentally deleted a file hosted in S3, which has caused disruption of service. What can DevOps engineer do to prevent this from happening again? An organization needs a persistent block storage volume that will be used for mission critical workload. The backup data will be stored in an object storage service, and after 30 days, the data will be stored in a data archival storage system. What should you do to meet the above requirement? An organization needs to provision a new Amazon EC2 instance with a persistent block storage volume to migrate data from its on premise network to AWS. The required maximum performance for storage volume is 64 IOPS, 64K IOPS. A popular mobile game uses CloudFront Lambda DynamoDB for its backend services. The player data is persisted on DynamoDB table and the static assets are distributed by CloudFront. However, there are a lot of compliance that saving and retrieving player information is taking a lot of time. To improve game's performance, which service would you use to reduce DynamoDB response time to microseconds? It would be DAX. An application is hosted on Fargate cluster that runs a batch job whenever an object is loaded on an S3 bucket. The minimum number of ECS tasks is initially set to 1 to save on cost, and it will only increase the task count based on the new object uploaded on S3 bucket. Once processing is done, the bucket becomes empty and ECS task count should be back to 1, which is the most suitable option to implement the least amount of effort. A company hosted e-commerce website on an ASG of EC2 instances behind an application load balancer. The solution architect noticed that the website is receiving large number of illegitimate external requests from multiple systems with IP address that constantly change. To resolve the performance issue, solution architect must implement a solution that would block the illegitimate request with minimal impact on legitimate traffic. A newly hired solution architect is assigned to manage a set of cloud formation template that is used in company's cloud architecture in AWS. The architect access the template and try to analyze the configuration of IAM policy for S3, which what does the above policy allow. It has version statement, effect is allow, action is get and list on all resources, and allow put object only on tutorial dojo, which is one resource. A content management system CMS is hosted on a fleet of auto-scaled on-demand EC2 instances which use Amazon Aurora as its database. Currently, the system stores the file document that the users uploaded in one of the attached EBS volumes. Your manager noticed that the system performance is quite slow and he has instructed you to improve the architecture of the system. In this scenario, what will you do to implement a scalable high throughput POIX compliant file system? A company requires all the data stored in the cloud to be encrypted at rest. To easily integrate this with other AWS services, they must have full control over the encryption of the created keys and also the ability to immediately remove the key material from AWS KMS. The solution should also be able to audit the key usage independently of AWS CloudTrail. Which of the following will meet the requirement? A company hosted a web application in ASG. The IT manager is concerned about the over provisioning of the resources that can cause higher operating costs. The solution architect has been instructed to create a cost effective solution without affecting the performance. Which dynamically scaling policy should be used to satisfy? The target tracking scaling policy. A popular social network is hosted in AWS and is using DynamoDB. There is a requirement to implement a follow feature where users can subscribe to certain updates made by particular user and be notified via email. Which of the following is the most suitable solution that you should implement to meet the requirement? A telecom company is planning to give AWS console access to developers. Company policy mandates the use of identity federation and role-based access control. Currently, the roles are already assigned using groups incorporate Active Directory. In this scenario, what combination of the following services can provide developers access to AWS console? An application consists of multiple EC2 instances in a private subnet in following availability zone. The application uses a single NAT gateway for downloading software patches from the internet. This is required to protect the application from a single point of failure when the NAT gateway encounters a failure or if its availability zone goes down. How the solution architect redesign the architecture to be more cost effective and highly available. A web application is using CloudFront to distribute their images, videos, and static content stored in S3 bucket and its users around the world. The company has recently introduced a new member only access to some of its high quality media files. There is a requirement to provide access to multiple private media files only to their paying subscribers without having to change their current URLs. Which of the following is most suitable solution that should implement to satisfy this requirement? An AI powered Forex trading application consumes thousands of data sets to train its machine learning model. The application's workload require a high performance parallel hot storage to process the training dataset concurrently. It also needs cost effective cold storage to archive those data sets that yield low profit. Which of the following storage service should the developer use? A popular social media website uses CloudFront web distribution to serve its content. They are receiving a number of complaints recently that their user take a lot of time to log into their website. There are also occasions where user get 504. You are instructed by a manager to significantly reduce the login time to further optimize the system. Choose two most cost effective solution which can improve applications performance. A solution architect is working for a company which has multiple VPCs in various AWS regions. The architect is assigned to set up a logging system which will track all the changes made to their AWS resource in all regions, including the configuration in IAM, CloudFront, WAF, Route 53. In order to pass the compliance requirement, the solution must ensure the security, integrity, and durability of log data. It should also provide an event history of all API calls made in AWS Management Console and AWS CLI. Which of the following solution will best fit the scenario? So this is our last question, guys. A startup is using RDS to store data from a web application. Most of the time, the application has low user activity, but it receives burst of traffic within seconds whenever there is a new product announcement. The solutions architect need to create a solution that will allow users around the globe to access the data using an API. What should the solution architect do meet the above requirement to meet the above requirement? And let's see, if we have 72% we'll pass, which I believe we will pass. Otherwise, hope for the best. Let's see what's our result, how much percent we get. Yay, we barely passed. It's 75%. If we would have done one more wrong, we might have failed, but it's good that we have passed with 75%. So we can quickly review the wrong, whatever were the wrong, and then I'll finish this video. And you can also watch in the playlist. I have more mock exams, so it will help you to prepare more questions. Now, what we'll do is we'll go with incorrect and we'll see what's the correct answer. So first option was saying enable the enhanced monitoring and rest everything was same. Now what do they explain here? So enhanced monitoring is a feature of RDS and not of EC2. Got it. So here we have to use throttle limits in API because API gateway will automatically scale and handle. That is what I was assuming. But let's see what is their answer. API gateway provides throttling at multiple levels, including global and by the service call. Throttling limits can be set for standard rates and bursts. For example, API owner can set a rate limit of 1000 requests per second for a specific method in their REST API, and also configure Amazon API gateway to handle a burst of 2000 requests per second for a few seconds. API gateway tracks a number of requests per second. Any request over the limit will receive 429. The client SDK generated by Amazon API gateway retry call automatically when met with their response. Hence the character is throttle the limit. The option which says it would handle spike is incorrect. Although it can scale using AWS edge location, you still need to configure the throttling to further manage the burst of your API. Oops, I was hoping to go with this. Enable IAM authentication. Oops, I was thinking to pick client side with master key, but somehow I came here. Let's read about it. Client side encryption is the act of encrypting data before sending to AWS S3. To enable the client side encryption, you have the following option: AWS KMS managed customer master key, or use a client side master key. When using AWS KMS managed customer master key to enable client side data encryption, you provide an AWS KMS customer master key to AWS. On the other hand, when you use client-side master key for client-side data encryption, your client-side master key and your unencrypted data are never sent to AWS. It's important that you safely manage your encryption key, because if you lose them, you cannot decrypt your data. This is how client-side encryption works. So you send your data and pre-object key when uploading an object. You provide a client-side master key to the S3 encryption client. The client uses master key only to encrypt the data encryption key, and it generates randomly. This process works like S3 encrypts client generated one time symmetric key, also known as a data encryption key, locally. It uses the data key to encrypt the data of a single S3 object. The client generates a separate data key for each object. The client encrypts the data encryption key using the master key that you provide. The client uploads the encrypted data key and its material description as part of the object metadata. The client uses the material description to determine which client-side master key to use for decryption. The client uploads the encrypted data to Amazon S3, and the client uploads the encrypted data to Amazon S3 and saves the encrypted data key as object metadata in S3. When downloading an object, the client download the encrypted object from S3. Using the material description for objects metadata, the client determined which master key to use to decrypt the data key. The client uses that master key to decrypt the data key, and then uses the data key to decrypt the object. Okay. Now the one we picked is incorrect, because in client side encryption with KMS managed customer master key, you provide the AWS KMS customer master key. The scenario clearly indicates that both the master key and unencrypted data key should never be sent to AWS. Okay, enable enhanced monitoring in RDS would have done the job. Amazon Aurora Global Database. Why is that so? Is designed for globally distributed application, allowing a single Amazon Aurora database to span multiple AWS region. It replicates your data with no impact on database performance, enables fast local reads with low latency in each region. Oh, so in this question, I was supposed to use RAM so that resources can be shared properly, which I missed out. I was thinking about machine learning because that is what uh, machine learning powered security service that helps you to prevent data loss by automatically discovering, classifying, and protecting sensitive data in Amazon S3. Amazon Mackie use machine learning to recognize sensitive data such as PII. Actually, I picked this one before. This one is good, and also this one. Both of these. Oops, I picked this one, then I went to this. Why? Because of I thought the asynchronous replication. Let's read about it. When you create and modify a DB instance to run multi-AZ, automatically provisions and maintains synchronous standby replication in a different availability zone. So here is the difference. In multi-AZ, you have synchronous. In read replicates asynchronous. Database engine, only database engine on primary instance is active. All read replica are accessible and can be used for read scaling. Automated backups are taken from standby. No backups configured by default. Always span two availability zones within a single region. Can be within availability zone across. Database engine versions upgrade happen on primary. Database engine version upgrade is independent from the source instance. So CloudWatch rule to detect S3 object put operation and set the target to ECS cluster. Since I was not aware that CloudWatch event can trigger ECS cluster to increase and decrease. Otherwise, this would have been correct. This is use EFS. What we picked was upgrade your existing EBS. And why it's wrong? Hmm. We need concurrent access from multiple EC2 instances. That is why it is wrong. Oops, IAM rules. So CloudFront signed URL provides the same basic scenario. Oops, this should not be Windows file. That was a silly mistake. Yeah, and that is all. So I hope you have enjoyed or learned something new in this mock test. Please subscribe to my channel. My name is Prem Aseem Jain. And in the description, I have mentioned the playlist which has more such practice exams. So I hope that would help, and best of luck for whenever you are planning to prepare the exam. Please leave a comment if you think this was useful. Thank you. Bye.